Hey guys, and welcome back in to the podcast. We are winding down on the current series, which is Emotion Organ Connection Explained. And on this episode, we're going to be talking about what UTIs have to do with regret and how there is a connection there. And if you do or don't get frequent UTIs, I think you're going to get a good bit out of this episode. But I know that is a common problem that we see. So let's dive into the kidneys. So first off, what do the kidneys do for us? I think most people realize that they're a filtration system, but they're actually our primary filtration system. And it's kind of like the same thing as being an air filter in your home. They filter out unwanted waste and toxins, and the blood flows into the kidneys where it's filtered and then it's cleansed and of excess fluids and waste. And after the blood's filtered, it returns to the bloodstream, and then the toxins are passed out of the body through the urine. So that's kind of how the kidneys work and what they do for us. But a lot of people do think about a primary detox organ being the liver, but the kidneys are actually just as important as the liver. The bladder, which is obviously connected to the kidneys, you can kind of think of it like a toilet bowl. Whenever we use the bathroom in the toilet bowl, we flush and then it gets out the unwanted waste. And so that's kind of what the bladder is. And obviously the bladder and the kidneys are very connected. Speaking of the
Yes.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, especially at night when your liver does upregulate detox, usually between 1 and 3 a.m. We talked about that in Chinese medicine. Your organs upregulate every couple hours. But I see this a lot in clients is they'll tell me they have to get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. And they're like, but I drink a lot of water before I go to bed. And I drink a lot of water before I go to bed, but I do not get up to go to the bathroom at night. And you shouldn't. And sort of what's happening is that detox, because the liver might be backed up, is spilling over to the kidney, because as Kari said, the kidney does a lot of detox too. So if that liver's backed up and can't basically keep up with the liver, it'll spill over into the kidney, and that's what will get you up at night to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. That I guess that's going back to Chinese medicine, right? The windows.
Right.
Yeah, but those are like so on spot, like
Yes.
truly. And so,
Yes. We see that all the time, don't
yeah,
we?
for sure. You probably have them memorized. I don't. Do you want to share just since we're talking about them?
Sure. I don't have them all memorized, but I can tell you sort of the basics. I think 11 to 1, not I think, I'm pretty sure 11 to 1 is gallbladder. Since we're talking about kidney, I know kidney is between 5 and 7 p.m. So again, sometimes upregulation, you'll sometimes get symptoms during those hours. So 5 to 7 is kidney. PM. PM.
Oh,
PM.
okay.
I should have kept in
No,
order.
it's okay. I was like, I
I'm
learned
thinking
something new.
kidney. Right. So gallbladder is usually between 11 to 1 a.m. and then 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. is liver. And then 3 to 5 a.m. is lung.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the other big ones. Small intestine. That is usually between 1 and 3 p.m., which is why people get sort of sleepy during that time too.
Okay.
Well, they've just eaten too, but that can be some of the issues. Those are the big ones.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, it's not always spot on, but a lot of times it is. And so if you constantly have to get up at night or have issues during those certain times, it's just more clues that your body's giving you that specific organ or system would need more support. But the liver bile duct actually splits off into the colon and kidney. So it makes sense how all these organs work together. But the kidney is really a main detox organ. And so when things are not working properly, things are going to back up that are north.
Right.
So some of the signs that the kidneys aren't working in this list definitely isn't exhaustive. There are a lot more, but these are some of the most common. Constipation, because we need liquid in our bowels. Sometimes constipation can be because the kidneys aren't working properly. Dark circles under your eyes or puffiness. Those are two really common symptoms. Water retention, swelling in general, lower back pain, definitely. Even nausea, poor appetite. Metallic taste or bad breath can actually be linked to the kidneys not working properly. Dry and itchy skin, foamy urine, dullness in your hair or hair loss, a frequent urge to urinate, fatigue, always being tired. Those are some of the main ones. Is there any that you would add, Jen, to that list?
No,
That you,
no, not really. I think the night, as I just mentioned, the nighttime urination is a huge one.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, you know, dehydration is huge when you think about the kidneys because the kidneys need enough water and minerals in that water
Yep.
to properly hydrate and to properly work. So do you want to talk
Yes.
just a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. We all think about dehydration and just drinking more water, but it's really about the minerals. Because usually with stress, we are stressing the kidneys. And we'll talk about that in a second, but dehydration is more about a mineral balance. Obviously, we need water, but if you think about what follows salt into the cell, it's water. So we need those minerals first. And that's just super important. There is not anybody that I see, Kari, I don't know about you, I'm sure you would agree, that does
Yeah.
not need more minerals.
No.
We just fly through them. I get tested on a regular basis, and just recently, some stress was kicking up, and I was testing for 4 scoops of the Re-Lyte, which is basically sodium potassium fluoride. And so it's not unheard of, that you need what seems like excessive amounts of minerals when you're going through a stressful period. Or maybe if you have some past trauma or chronic illness or some other stressors, you probably need more minerals on a daily basis just to keep up.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, and like what Jen said, we see is that they're at such a deficit. It's like a big hole that's there that we're
Right.
trying to fill in. And then it's, you kind of have to keep filling it in to even get back to level. So
Right.
that's why a lot of times you do need a lot more up front. And then, of course, could cut back to a little bit less, but we just need our food isn't as nutrient dense, mineral dense as it used to be. We have a lot more stress. Like there's just a lot of things at play here that deplete minerals. And so it's just something that we can't just rely on our food, which is primarily how we get minerals. It's just not as nutrient dense as it used to be. So we do have to think about other ways that we can get minerals and kind of keep that balance going.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say for the majority of people doing the Re-Lyte or an adrenal cocktail daily, if not 3 or 4 times a day, if it's a high stress period, is a must.
Yeah, for sure. We've seen people have just that alone,
Right.
have a lot of, I mean,
Huge
you would
effects.
just, what now?
Huge effects.
Oh, yes, for sure. So we'll talk a little bit more about both of those things. If you're like, I don't know what those things are, we'll talk about what they are in just a little bit. But, stress does play a huge role. I mean, in so many things, right? You're like,
Right.
yeah, duh. But as far as just
Especially for the beginning.
yeah, I mean, as far as just the kidney, it definitely does because it has a role in blood pressure and blood sugar responses. And when we're under stress, those things they're just not stable, right? It throws those things off of balance. You burn through minerals more. And so that's going to affect a lot of things, but definitely the kidneys is one that get affected a good bit.
Yeah, and I just want to sort of connect, we're talking about regret and fear. Those are connected in Chinese medicine with the kidney, and those direct relate to the adrenal glands. Remember, your adrenals sit on top of your kidneys. And also in Chinese medicine, your adrenals are really considered an extension of the kidney.
Mhm.
And so fear and, the relationship with fear and kidney in Chinese medicine is basically analogous to adrenaline and cortisol, the stress hormones being released from the adrenal glands.
Mhm.
And that, of course, activates our sympathetic nervous system or our fight or flight response. And when we're doing this over and over and over again, and sometimes, we don't even know, as I mentioned, there's maybe just a chronic illness or some, endured trauma. That is what chronically activates that system. And that is what depletes not only the kidney, but obviously the adrenals also. And where you will start to see things like fear maybe pop up a little bit more. And I think the best example of that would be something like, anxiety or anxiety attacks. That's how you sort of know those kidneys are really depleted.
Yeah. And I think that, if you do have chronic UTIs, it almost I mean, 9 times out of 10, it has some kind of emotional component to it.
100%,
Past trauma
100%.
or
Yeah.
things that's going on now, like, and I think it just goes back to we can't just only look at addressing the physical symptoms. If you don't, you're just going to continue to have these chronic, if we're talking about UTIs or other chronic issues, unless you
Kidney
really,
stones.
yeah, kidney stones is another one for sure. Other things that can kind of play into that, mold can definitely aggravate the bladder and the kidneys. And then biofilms, which is something that specifically parasites and other types of bugs create they're like little sacs that they hide in. And so biofilms can also be part of the puzzle to the chronic UTI if you have that going on. But I would say
Right.
number one is emotional issues, that repressed emotions that you haven't worked through.
For sure. For sure. If you have chronic kidney
Yeah.
issues. And I just wanted to mention too, even if you don't have the emotional strain or you don't have the chronic illness or the mold or the trauma, overworking, which I think the majority of
Mhm.
us probably do at some time or another,
Mhm.
Kari's smiling, um, will cause a depletion in the kidney and the adrenal. So, the constant rushing mentality, the striving, the keeping up, the not having that really downtime. And, in Chinese medicine, the way that they really support the kidney is just really a lot of downtime, basically to restore the body, downtime inward, to look inward, to rest, to recover. You know, it's like cozying up on the couch with a warm blanket. And, you know, sometimes we think that's a reward. That is really a necessity.
Yeah. I mean, which of course our physical body needs rest, but sometimes when we think it's just our body needing rest, we actually need soul rest. I think about
Yeah.
fear and how the opposite of that is confidence in something. Like if we're constantly fearful of, I don't know, I mean, you name it, right? There's just so many
Right.
fears we can have. We
Yep.
don't have confidence. And so just trying to shift that mindset of just being confident in the Lord's plan, confident in his plan overall for that day, for that hour. Like, if you just have all these fears popping up, like, I was just talking to Jenn the other day, like, even at the beginning of the day, it was like, how am I going to have time to do all these things? And I'm like, listen, the Lord has given you enough time in a day to do whatever, time and energy to do whatever he's called you to do. Keyword is he has called you to do, right? We have like our whole list
Amen.
and we want to do it all. And yeah, it's tough to lean into that, but that is the answer to not to getting out of that cycle and really trusting and not being so fearful. That's where it all starts. And so yes, physical rest, we all need that, but if you don't, if you don't have that soul rest, that's where you really get recharged, and that's where it starts, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I've mentioned before on here, my past with anxiety, and I can tell you for a fact that rest and minerals were the two things that made huge difference in my anxiety. I pretty much don't really deal with anxiety anymore because of that. And I would try all the supplements and do all the things to sort of handle the anxiety, and they helped, but it kept coming back. It wasn't until I literally slowed down, kept my blood sugar stable, replenished my minerals, that my anxiety really just dissipated
Yeah.
and didn't come back. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes we all get that,
Yeah.
sort of moments here and there. But it was pivotal.
Yeah, for sure. And so, you know, I think we all have to just take a look and see where we are and which one of these things might be standing out and might be just, lingering in your mind that, hey, this is what I need to concentrate on if I have these issues, or really just in general, even if you don't have specific kidney issues. But when I think about a supplement, we've talked several times about Re-Lyte. It's not an actual pill; it's more of it's a powder, right, that you put in water. But I think that would be the number one recommendation, right? To replenish some of these minerals. And so it's by Redmond Real Salt, and it's a really good ratio of sodium to potassium. And it's actually a good bit more than you're going to find in other hydration powders. And,
Yes.
but,
I get that
a
question
lot
all
of
the time.
people
Sorry to
need
interrupt you.
that
Yes.
much, right?
Right.
Um, along with salting your foods. And what I typically do is do 1 scoop of Re-Lyte and 1 adrenal cocktail a day. I do like that adrenal cocktails are whole food ingredients, and which, the Re-Lyte has coconut water powder in there, but I really do like the vitamin C and all the benefits that it has. And so I typically do one of each. And so if you're really depleted, you might need even more than that. So I think some people are really scared to consume too much salt. But what I've seen is like we need salt.
100%. I cannot say it enough. Do not be afraid of salt. And I know we've talked about it here before, but
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if you do have kidney issues or cardiovascular issues, you do need to be a little bit careful. Um, but barring those, we are rolling through the sodium and
Mhm.
potassium, and it's a must. And then adding your magnesium after you've been on the Re-Lyte for a while. So the easiest way to do that is really just get the magnesium, Epsom salt flakes,
Mhm.
and adding them to a nice bath with some baking soda after you've been on to replenishing those minerals with the Re-Lyte or the adrenal cocktails to really, offer a well-rounded support, because you're burning through the magnesium too, but you have to get sodium and potassium in you first.
Yeah, for sure. Else you'll stress the adrenals out more.
Right.
I love to add some oils to that bath too, just extra relaxation benefits.
Mhm. Yes.
But before we go on, the adrenal cocktail, if you're not familiar with that, I will put a blog post that has a lot more information about that in the show notes and in the description of this video. But it's basically orange juice, coconut water, and salt. Those are the main 3 ingredients. You can make it differently if you can't do orange juice for some reason, or want
Yeah.
to do it differently. There are other variations that I have spelled out in that blog. But that is something that we just kind of need to. These are something that we need to do daily. Not just every now and then. And a lot of times, not just for a season. You might need more for a season, but we do continually need to replenish our mineral stores. So we'll have more information about, and a link to the Re-Lyte as well.
Yes, for sure.
Um, so you want to talk a little bit about the emotion? I know we talked about it a little bit, but
Yeah,
want
sure. So obviously, kidney is linked to fear, but also regret. And as we mentioned, stressing that adrenals will, because they're an extension of the kidney, you may have some of those emotions that come up. Now, obviously, it can be vice versa, right? The trauma, or a traumatic event, obviously the fear is there. But I have seen in testing people where kidney issues are directly related to regret. And so,
yeah,
using the tapping, the EFT with the oils to help move some of those emotions can be incredibly helpful. And then, of course, supporting, the kidneys physically
yeah,
too, obviously, so that we're hitting it from both sides, emotionally and physically. But if you have some lingering, fear, if you feel like you're in that constant anxiety or on the verge of anxiety, or regret, again, look at it from both sides, the physical side, kidney and adrenals, and also the emotional side.
yeah. We have 2 oils listed, Passion, which is a blend, and then Bergamot, which is a single oil to use alongside EFT, which will provide a free resource for you, or just by themselves, either one.
And
And
there's good studies on the bergamot.
yeah,
There's a great, and we could probably link it, but someone actually did their PhD thesis on bergamot and PTSD with some great results. So if trauma is definitely, in your past, bergamot is definitely something you should consider.
yeah. And I was actually just looking. I have the Passion blend right here in front of me, and it's another name for it is the Inspiring blend. And it just made me think about how that plays in with regret, because oftentimes regret is looking at the past, and that blend can help you just to focus more on the future, and just, trust in the Lord that He has the future all planned out for you. There's good things there. There's healing there, found in Him. And so thought that was a cool connection to that blend. Um, so we wanted to leave you with a verse. This verse is from 2 Corinthians 7:10. It says, "Godly sorrow brings repentance that leads to salvation and leaves no regret, but worldly sorrow brings death." And so it just made me think about, obviously the regret piece in there, and how if we focus on that, it can just seem really dark. Like, we've messed up in the past and there's no way to fix it. But, we have to repent from things and move forward in a different direction, in the opposite direction. That's what repentance means. And so I'm just, we're just praying over you that you, if you really do feel like regret is something that you experience and just kind of continue to hold on to, that you'll leave that in the past and repent and ask God to just lead you in a different direction, because he wants to. He's always pursuing us. He can just rewrite a new story. And so
Mhm.
I think that that's huge, right? We don't need to go through life with regret, because nobody's perfect and everybody makes mistakes, but we can learn that he's a safe place for us to put our trust. And so we're thankful that you joined us for this series. We really hope that it's given you a different way to look at physical things that might pop up and emotional connections to those. If you have any questions about any of these things, you can always reach out to us via email or on Instagram via DM. We would love to pray for you or answer any questions, or just however we can serve you. We want to be real, and that means the messy and the complicated and all the things, right?
And
Yeah. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.